Hey couples, welcome back to Heart's Wine from Heart's Distractions, where we dive deep into the messy, beautiful, and complex world of relationships. I'm your host, Alicia Minor Gaines, and today we're talking about something that has the power to make or break any romantic relationship: emotional intelligence. The secret to lasting love. Have you ever been in love with someone but still felt emotionally disconnected? Like, no matter how much love you pour into the relationship, it feels like you and your partner are speaking different emotional languages. That's because love alone isn't enough. Emotional intelligence is what keeps love alive, thriving, and sustainable. Without it, love can feel like an unsolvable puzzle. Let's start with a quick story, shall we? There is a couple, let's call them James and Maria. They've been married for 10 years, and over time, their connection started to fade. They fought over small things, avoided real conversations, and eventually, Maria felt emotionally neglected. Divorce seemed inevitable until they discovered emotional intelligence. Learning how to manage emotions, communicate effectively, and show empathy completely transformed their marriage. And they're not alone. Studies from marriage and family therapy research shows that couples with high emotional intelligence experience about 20 to 30% higher relationship satisfaction and lower divorce rates. So in today's episode, we'll break down what emotional intelligence really is, how your upbringing shapes your emotional intelligence, red flags to watch for, and practical ways to strengthen emotional intelligence in your relationship. Get ready. Get your glasses of wine or your favorite drink, because this is going to be a deep one. So let's start at the very beginning. What exactly is emotional intelligence, you ask? And why does it matter so much when it comes to love? Emotional intelligence isn't just some trendy buzzword. It's backed by decades of scientific research. The term was first coined in 1990 by psychologists Peter Salovey and John Mayer, who defined it as the ability to monitor one's own and others' feelings and emotions, to discriminate among them, and to use this information to guide one's thinking and actions. But it wasn't until psychologist Daniel Goleman's groundbreaking book, Emotional Intelligence, 1995, that emotional intelligence captured widespread attention. Goleman argued powerfully that emotional intelligence was even more crucial than IQ when it came to success in relationships, career, and overall happiness. Neuroscience has since reinforced this idea. Modern brain scans reveal how emotional intelligence actively reshapes our neural pathways, enhancing our capacity for empathy, self-control, and relationship building. Emotionally intelligent individuals don't just feel better emotionally, they actually experience structural changes in their brains that support healthier relationships. Okay, I know you're like, "Ooh, she gave us the science," but I'm a science buff, so I had to give y'all those facts. But as we touched upon earlier, emotional intelligence consists of 4 critical components: self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, and effective communication. Let's unpack these in greater detail, exploring exactly how each pillar shapes our relationships. So number 1, self-awareness, knowing yourself first. Self-awareness is the foundational skill of emotional intelligence. It's not merely recognizing your emotions, it's understanding their roots and impact. Imagine you feel sudden anger when your partner forgets an anniversary or important date. Self-awareness is pausing to ask yourself, why does this trigger me so deeply? Am I feeling unloved, unimportant, or disrespected? When we lack self-awareness, our emotions control us. We say hurtful things impulsively or withdraw in frustration. But when we're self-aware, we create space to respond intentionally, fostering connection rather than conflict. Relationship expert Esther Perel once explained it powerfully. Self-awareness gives us choice in how we respond to our emotions, choice in how we interact with others. Let's explore a deeper example. Let's say Taylor often got irritated when her boyfriend Alex didn't text back quickly. Initially, she reacted with frustration, accusing him of not caring. When she practiced self-awareness, however, Taylor realized her abandonment. Instead of blaming Alex, she openly expressed her underlying fears, transforming a recurring conflict in a vulnerable moment of connection. How many of us can relate to Taylor? Number 2, self-regulation, mastering your emotions. While self-awareness is about recognizing emotions, self-regulation is managing them effectively. It's the emotional pause button. Imagine a heated argument. Instead of shouting, storming out, or withdrawing, emotionally intelligent people pause, breathe, and choose how they respond. Self-regulation doesn't mean expressing emotions. It's controlling how and when we express them. Research from the Gottman Institute highlights that couples who effectively self-regulate experience significantly less relationship distress. Dr. John Gottman emphasizes this point clearly. The difference between a thriving relationship and one that fails often lies in a partner's ability to regulate their emotional reactions. Consider a scenario involving, let's say, Jared and Amy. Jared frequently came home stressed from work, snapping at Amy for minor things like leaving dishes in the sink. Once he learned about self-regulation, Jared started implementing a simple emotional pause. He'd spend 5 minutes alone upon arriving home, breathing deeply, allowing the day's stress to dissipate before engaging with Amy. This small act drastically improved their daily interactions and emotional connection. Can we all get like Jared and Amy here? Number 3, empathy, truly understanding your partner. Empathy goes beyond mere sympathy, people. It means genuinely stepping into your partner's emotional shoes. Empathy requires vulnerability, curiosity, and openness. It's the skill that makes your partner feel heard, seen, and valued. Without empathy, relationships suffer misunderstandings and resentment. With empathy, couples build trust and emotional intimacy. A common empathy trap is assuming we understand our partner without actively listening. Renowned relationship psychologist Dr. Sue Johnson states clearly, true empathy requires listening not to respond, but to genuinely understand. When your partner shares frustrations about their day, empathy is saying, "Tell me more," rather than immediately jumping to solutions or dismissals. I'm going to give y'all another relatable example. Lila noticed her husband Marcus had become withdrawn and short-tempered. Instead of taking it personally, Lila practiced empathy. She gently approached Marcus saying, "I've noticed you seemed overwhelmed. Can you help me understand what's happening?" Her genuine curiosity created safety, allowing Marcus to share financial stress he'd been privately carrying. Their relationship deepened significantly from that conversation onward. Number 4, effective communication, bridging the emotional gap. Communication isn't just exchanging information. It's connecting emotionally. Effective communication requires clarity, vulnerability, and non-defensive openness. Emotionally intelligent couples communicate feelings rather than accusations. Compare saying, "You never appreciate me," with, "I feel overlooked when my efforts aren't acknowledged." The latter invites conversation rather than defensiveness. Dr. Brené Brown, an expert on vulnerability and emotional courage, emphasizes the importance of clear emotional communication. Vulnerability is the birthplace of connection. Without clear emotional honesty, relationships stagnate. Let's revisit our friends Chris and Jasmine from earlier. Jasmine used to say, "You don't open up," triggering defensiveness in Chris. That's not a good one, right? When she shifted to communicating from vulnerability, "I feel disconnected when we don't talk about deeper things," Chris softened, feeling safer to open up. Effective communication transformed their conflicts into opportunities for deeper understanding. Emotional intelligence isn't just theory. Relationship therapists emphasize its necessity daily. Dr. Alexandra Solomon, author of Loving Bravely, stresses every relationship issue is, at its core, an emotional intelligence issue. Improving emotional intelligence is how couples evolve beyond repetitive conflicts. Similarly, psychologist and marriage expert Dr. Stan Tatkin describes emotionally intelligent couples as having relationship mindfulness, a deliberate and conscious awareness of each other's emotional worlds. Tatkin's extensive work shows couples practicing relationship mindfulness significantly outperform their less emotionally aware counterparts in terms of relationship longevity and satisfaction. Let's highlight two more couples who transform their relationships through emotional intelligence. Maya and Aaron, let's call them. After frequent arguments about household chores, Maya realized her real issue was feeling undervalued. Aaron, using empathy, began expressing appreciation daily. Maya, practicing self-awareness, understood her need for validation, and their relationship drastically improved. Sophia and Daniel. Let's say Daniel initially dismissed Sophia's emotional expressions as overreacting. Sophia learned effective communication strategies, clearly explaining her emotional needs rather than attacking Daniel. In response, Daniel practiced empathy, actively listening without defensiveness. Their emotional intimacy strengthened significantly, breaking destructive patterns. Let's finish this segment with a quick self-reflection exercise. Yes, I'm adding some exercises to this episode for y'all. So, identify one recent emotional conflict with your partner. Write down the initial emotions you felt. To explore deeper, ask, why did you feel those emotions? Were past experiences triggered? And how did you react initially? And how might emotional intelligence practices, such as what we went over, self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, and effective communication, have changed your response? Practicing this regularly will dramatically enhance your emotional intelligence. As much as we might like to believe that we enter relationships with a clean emotional slate, the truth is we carry a deeply rooted emotional legacy shaped by our parents or primary caregivers. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, our early caregivers profoundly influence our capacity for emotional intelligence as adults, significantly impacting our romantic relationships. Our ability or struggle to manage emotions in relationships often traces directly back to our childhood. From the moment we're born, we're observing, learning, and internalizing messages about love, trust, conflict, and emotional expression. In fact, research from Harvard University indicates that by age 6, most children already possess deeply ingrained patterns for how they'll handle emotions throughout life. If that is true, y'all, for those parents out there, that means from birth to age 6, those are some crucial years. So make sure you model these emotions effectively. But let's unpack this idea further, shall we? Psychologist Dr. Susan David, author of the book Emotional Agility, explains our emotional scripts, how we respond to anger, sadness, rejection, or fear, are largely shaped by what we observed growing up. If we watched our parents suppress feelings or communicate poorly, we often repeat those patterns unconsciously. For example, if your parents rarely showed affection openly, you might unconsciously equate vulnerability or emotional expression with weakness or discomfort. Or, if you witness frequent explosive arguments, you might equate conflict with chaos, causing you to either avoid conflicts at all costs or unconsciously recreate volatile environments in your relationships. Central to understanding emotional intelligence is attachment theory, developed by psychologist John Bowlby and later expanded by psychologist Mary Ainsworth. This theory highlights how our childhood interactions with primary caregivers determine our attachment style, but strongly influences how we behave in adult romantic relationships. Let's explore the 4 main attachment styles in depth, including how each impacts emotional intelligence, which is different from my previous episode on attachment styles. Make sure y'all tune into that if you haven't already. First one, secure attachments. Securely attached individuals typically experience caregivers who were consistently warm, responsive, and emotionally available. This emotional stability builds trust, confidence, and healthy self-worth. However, the impact on relationships, right? Securely attached adults communicate openly, manage conflicts constructively, and express emotional needs confidently. They naturally exhibit high emotional intelligence. But if they encounter someone with an insecure attachment, there might be some questions in those areas. Number 2 is your anxious attachment. Individuals with anxious attachment often experience inconsistent caregiving, sometimes available or sometimes distant or unpredictable. This uncertainty creates anxiety around emotional intimacy and fear of abandonment. Impact on relationships. Anxious attached adults frequently seek reassurance, can be overly sensitive to relationship fluctuations, and might struggle with self-regulation during conflicts, often showing lower emotional intelligence. Number 3, avoidant attachment. Avoidantly attached people typically grow up with caregivers who are emotionally unavailable, dismissive, or overly critical. They learned early that emotions equal rejection or disappointment. The impact on relationships. Avoidant adults suppress emotional vulnerability, struggle with empathy, and often withdraw during conflicts or emotional intimacy, significantly limiting emotional intelligence growth. And the last one is your disorganized attachment. This attachment style results from chaotic, traumatic, or abusive caregiving. Individuals often feel trapped between longing for closeness and fearing intimacy or rejection. Impact on relationships. Disorganized attached individuals frequently leads to emotional unpredictability, trust issues, and confusion in expressing or interpreting emotional signals, deeply impairing emotional intelligence. Dr. Sue Johnson, creator of emotionally focused therapy, emphasizes understanding your attachment style isn't about blame. It's about awareness. Awareness is the first step towards emotional intelligence and healing. Let's dive deeper into relatable stories illustrating these dynamics. Let's say we have Michael and Erica, who have an anxious attachment style in action. Michael always felt insecure when Erica spent time with friends. He texts repeatedly seeking assurance, Erica feeling suffocated, so she withdrew. Through couples therapy, Michael traced this pattern back to his childhood, where love felt conditional based on performance or approval. Recognizing his anxious attachment allowed him to clearly communicate his needs to Erica without overwhelming her, ultimately enhancing both their emotional intelligence and intimacy. Let's say we have Tina and Raj as our second couple, who are breaking avoidant patterns. Raj struggled immensely with emotional intimacy, often becoming defensive when Tina asked him about his feelings. In therapy, Raj uncovered that his parents consistently discouraged emotional expression, labeling it as weakness, which is the most case for most men in society. With this new understanding, Raj began consciously practicing vulnerability with Tina, gradually increasing their mutual trust and emotional intelligence. Psychologist and attachment expert Dr. Amir Levine, co-author of Attached Underscores, our emotional legacy isn't permanent, it's changeable. With intention, even deeply ingrained emotional patterns can shift toward greater emotional intelligence. Additionally, renowned therapist Dr. Terry Real notes, many couples remain trapped in painful emotional loops because they never examine the emotional legacies they inherited. Understanding this legacy is essential to breaking these cycles and cultivating emotional intelligence. Now, let's put these insights into practice. So what I want y'all to do is grab a notebook or mentally reflect on these questions. Think about your parents' emotional expression. How did they handle sadness, anger, joy, or conflict? Were emotions openly discussed or suppressed? Consider your reactions in your relationships. Are you more likely to withdraw, pursue aggressively, seek reassurance, or remain emotionally distant? And lastly, identify your patterns. Do you see similarities between your emotional reactions now and those you observed from your parents. After reflecting, complete this sentence. Because of my childhood, I learned that emotions are blank, and now I often respond by blank. Those blanks is where you're going to fill in your answers. This awareness alone dramatically increases your emotional intelligence, empowering you to consciously choose healthier emotional responses and relationships. Understanding your emotional inheritance is powerful, but what can you do about it practically? Here are actionable strategies. 1. Practice compassionate awareness. Recognize emotional patterns without judgment. Understand that your emotional reactions aren't failures but learned responses needing compassion and curiosity rather than criticism. 2. Engage in reparenting yourself. Psychologist Dr. Nicole LePera, author of How to Do the Work, emphasizes the practice of reparenting, which involves consciously providing yourself the emotional support or validation you may have lacked growing up. And here's an additional tip. When triggered emotionally, ask yourself, what would a compassionate parent say to comfort me now? I know that just touched home for some of y'all. Number 3, open conversations with your partner. Share your emotional legacy openly. Transparency encourages emotional intelligence and allows your partner to support your emotional growth. Actionable tip: schedule monthly emotional check-ins, openly discussing your emotional triggers, reactions, and progress toward healthier responses. And final thoughts on this: changing your emotional story. Your emotional legacy is influential, but it isn't destiny. Understanding how your early caregivers shaped your emotional intelligence gives you the power to rewrite your emotional story. As Dr. Esther Perel famously says, the quality of our relationships determines the quality of our lives, and emotional intelligence is the key to evaluating both. By recognizing your emotional inheritance, practicing self-awareness, and consciously choosing new emotional responses, you and your partner can cultivate a deeply emotionally intelligent, satisfying, and thriving relationship. That was a mouthful. Recognizing emotional intelligence in a relationship is critical, but equally important is identifying when emotional intelligence is lacking. We're about to get into some real stuff, y'all. And I want y'all to know that ignoring emotional immaturity or low emotional intelligence in a partner or even ourselves can lead to unnecessary pain, recurring conflicts, and ongoing dissatisfaction. So, how do you spot the red flags of low emotional intelligence early enough to address them? Let's dive deeper into each critical warning sign, illustrated with real-life scenarios and supported by expert insights. 1. Blaming others for emotions. One of the clearest indicators of low emotional intelligence is a partner consistently blaming others for their emotions. Statements like, "You make me so angry," or "I wouldn't yell if you didn't provoke me," are classic signs. Rather than taking responsibility for their emotional reactions, emotionally immature partners externalize blame, which prevents personal growth and harms intimacy. Let's consider Mark and Lauren, for example. Every argument between them escalated quickly because Mark constantly blamed Lauren for his outbursts. "If you didn't nag me, I wouldn't yell," he'd insist. Lauren felt increasingly responsible for Mark's moods, resulting in her walking on eggshells to avoid confrontation. Only when Mark acknowledged his lack of emotional responsibility in counseling did their relationship begin improving. Dr. Harriet Lerner, author of The Dance of Anger, emphasizes, emotionally intelligent individuals recognize their feelings as their own responsibility. Blaming others for how you feel strips you of personal responsibility, of personal accountability, and relational power. Hope some of y'all heard me on that one. Number 2, emotional outbursts or shutting down. Another prominent red flag is difficulty managing emotional reactions, typically manifesting as explosive anger or emotionally shutting down during conflicts. This inability to self-regulate can cause intense relationship distress, eroding trust and intimacy over time. Let's take, for example, Sarah and Jake. Sarah regularly experienced explosive anger, screaming and slamming doors whenever conflicts arose with her partner Jake. Alternatively, Jake reacted by completely shutting down, becoming silent and distant. Both behaviors signified low emotional intelligence, as neither could productively address the underlying issues. When Sarah and Jake finally sought help, they learned strategies for emotional self-regulation, such as breathing techniques, pausing during heightened emotions, and clearly expressing feelings without defensiveness, dramatically improving their relationship dynamic. Relationship expert Dr. John Gottman notes, couples who struggle with emotional outbursts or withdrawal often lack emotional intelligence tools like self-regulation, which are crucial for lasting intimacy. Number 3, lack of accountability or genuine apology. Emotionally intelligent individuals accept accountability for their actions and offer sincere apologies when needed. Partners who consistently avoid responsibility or provide superficial apologies exhibit low emotional intelligence, creating resentment and emotional disconnection in their relationship. For example, Aaron regularly forgot important dates, hurting his partner Mia's feelings. Rather than sincerely apologizing, Aaron deflected, making excuses like, "I was busy. Why are you so sensitive?" Mia increasingly felt emotionally invalidated, causing significant distance. Only after Aaron learned to genuinely apologize and acknowledge Mia's hurt feelings did trust slowly return. Dr. Brené Brown famously states, accountability and sincere apology demonstrate vulnerability and emotional courage, hallmarks of emotional intelligence. Number 4, struggles with empathy or invalidating emotions. Empathy, the ability to truly understand another's emotional perspective, is foundational for emotional intelligence. Please hear me on this one, people. Low emotional intelligence often surfaces through dismissing, invalidating, or minimizing your partner's feelings. Statements like, "you're overreacting," or "it's not a big deal," or "you shouldn't feel that way," clearly illustrate low empathy. An example of this, let's say we have Chloe. Chloe felt increasingly alone in her marriage with Noah because whenever she shared feelings of stress or sadness, Noah responded with invalidation. "You have no reason to complain," he'd say, dismissively, of course. Chloe soon stopped sharing her feelings entirely, emotionally withdrawing from Noah. After relationship counseling, focusing on empathy building, Noah realized the damaging effects of his dismissive responses and actively practiced empathic listening, rebuilding intimacy. Psychologist and empathy researcher Dr. Jamil Zaki explains, empathy is the glue holding relationships together. Without empathy, emotional bonds weaken quickly. And number 5, repeating toxic patterns without growth. Perhaps the most damaging red flag of low emotional intelligence is a stubborn refusal or inability to grow from past emotional mistakes. How many do that right now? Emotionally intelligent partners actively learn and evolve from conflicts, whereas emotionally immature partners continuously repeat destructive patterns without genuine effort to change. Let's say we have Rachel and Chris, who continuously argued about trust. Rachel repeatedly broke trust through small lies or dishonesty, yet refused to meaningfully address why she struggled to be truthful. Chris became exhausted, emotionally drained by repeated promises that went unfulfilled. Only when Rachel genuinely addressed her emotional avoidance through personal relationship, coaching, and committed accountability did they finally break the toxic cycle. Renowned therapist Dr. Alexandra Solomon emphasizes, repeated toxic patterns indicate emotional stagnation. Emotional intelligence requires the willingness to learn from conflict, not continually repeat it. Take a moment to reflect on your relationship. Answer honestly to identify potential emotional intelligent blind spots with these questions. Does your partner frequently blame you for their emotional reactions? Does your partner consistently invalidate or dismiss your feelings? During conflict, does your partner react explosively or withdraw emotionally? Does your partner regularly struggle with sincere apologies and accountability? And are destructive relationship patterns frequently repeated without meaningful change? So, if you had 0 to 1 of these and you answered yes, your relationship likely demonstrates healthy emotional intelligence. If you answered 2 to 3 of these questions with a yes, pay attention. There's room to grow your emotional intelligence together. And if you answered 4 or 5 of these questions with a yes, significant emotional intelligence concerns exist here. So you might want to seek professional guidance or engage in intentional emotional intelligence improvement strategies. If you identify some emotional intelligence red flags, here are concrete strategies to address and improve them. 1. Establish regular emotional intelligence check-ins. Set weekly or bi-weekly times dedicated to openly discussing emotional experiences without judgment or defensiveness. 2. Practice empathic listening. Commit to actively listening without interrupting or minimizing each other's emotions. Repeat back what you heard to confirm understanding, validating your partner's emotional experience. 3. Implement the 24-hour emotional rule. Before addressing emotionally charged issues, wait 24 hours to process feelings, reducing impulsive reactions. Use this time frame to reflect deeply and clearly articulate emotional responses later. 4, encourage mutual accountability. Create mutual accountability agreement. Openly admit mistakes, acknowledge hurt feelings, and commit to sincere apologies, fostering deeper trust. 5, engage in couples therapy, relationship coaching, or emotional intelligence coaching. Professional guidance accelerates emotional intelligence growth, offering tailored tools, exercises, and accountability for lasting relational change. Here's a real inspiring story. Let's say Bianca and David constantly fought over small misunderstandings. David regularly invalidated Bianca's emotions, creating resentment. Realizing their relationship was at risk, they committed to improving emotional intelligence. Bianca openly shared her emotional experiences without blame, and David learned empathy-building exercises, practicing validating responses daily. Within months, I did say months, their relationship transformed profoundly. Less conflict, increased trust, and deeper emotional intimacy. Who does not want to be like Bianca and David? I'm just saying. That was a good transformation story. So, identifying red flags of low emotional intelligence can initially feel daunting. However, acknowledging these emotional blind spots honestly and proactively addressing them demonstrates remarkable courage, maturity, and genuine commitment to love. As acclaimed relationship researcher Dr. Stan Tatkin beautifully summarizes, true intimacy thrives when emotional intelligence becomes not just a concept, but a daily, active practice between partners. By courageously recognizing emotional intelligence red flags and addressing them intentionally, couples transform relationship challenges into opportunities for deeper intimacy, healthier connections, and lasting happiness. All right, friends, we've covered a lot of ground. And now it's time for something fun, relatable, and maybe just a little revealing. Our emotional intelligence love test. This isn't your typical test. You can't fail, and there's no need for nervous sweats. Instead, it's about understanding yourself and your partner better. Ever wondered exactly how emotional intelligent you and your partner are? Are you emotionally intelligent rock stars, or is there still some tuning needed to hit those high emotional notes? Don't worry. We've all got room for improvement, and honestly, who doesn't love a love quiz? Plus, we'll laugh a bit along the way because let's face it, relationships can be pretty funny sometimes, even when they're complicated. So grab a pen, your partner if they're around, your favorite snack with your beverage, or just sit back and relax, because you got this. Think back to your latest disagreement. Was it about chores, Netflix cheating? Okay, we've all been there. Or perhaps the classic, where do we want to eat standoff? Imagine this scenario. It's your birthday, and your partner completely forgets. No card, no text, no surprise cupcake, like literally nothing. I know, ouch. What's your first reaction? A, silent treatment deluxe is what we're going to call this, which is where you pretend it doesn't bother you, but you quietly feel upset inside by saying, you forgot, totally fine, but internally you're kind of like plotting your revenge. B, passive aggressive Olympics. I like that one. This is where you drop subtle hints until they figure it out, like humming the birthday song at dinner or saying, wow, guess birthdays aren't important anymore. C, explosive drama. Some of y'all know y'all like the drama. This is where you become openly upset or angry, expressing your disappointment immediately by saying, how could you? Clearly you never cared about me. And then you kind of exit off with a dramatic exit. Or D, emotionally mature gold star. This is where you honestly express your feelings without blaming by saying, I felt hurt when you forgot my birthday. Can we talk about this? Or, hey, forgetting hurt my feelings. Can we talk about it? Okay. So option B, friends, you might be a little clever here, though subtlety sometimes backfires. If you're humming birthday tunes through dessert, your partner might just think you're really cheerful today. So I don't know if that one's going to work. Those of you who chose option A, we've all been there, and it's okay to admit feeling hurt. Those who chose option C, you've got passion. Just remember, it's all in the delivery though. And those of you who chose D, that's emotional intelligence, gold star territory. You should celebrate every day, birthday or not. So picture this. Your partner comes home visibly upset. They accidentally sent an embarrassing email to their boss, the kind that makes you cringe just hearing about it. How do you respond? A, try to immediately solve the problem by saying, did you delete it? Apologize? Should we move to a new city? It could be A, I don't know. B, lighten the mood with jokes by saying, well, looks like we'll both be unemployed. C, offer reassurance without fully hearing them out by saying, don't worry about it. It's probably not as bad as you think. Or D, pause, listen patiently, and offer emotional support by saying, that sounds stressful. I'm here to listen if you want to talk it through. If you pick B, you're probably the funny one in the relationship, which is great, but timing is everything. Option A's, you're the superhero fixers, ready to save the day. Just remember, sometimes your partner simply wants comfort, not a game plan. My C's, we know you mean well, but even small things can feel huge. And my D's, seriously? Are you taking notes from relationship experts like myself? Because this is amazing work if you chose that one. This is part 3. I like to call this one Apology Olympics. But real talk, how good are you at apologies? Let's say you accidentally spilled coffee on your partner's favorite shirt. Naturally, it's white and expensive, but real life loves irony. How do you handle it? A, quickly explain it wasn't your fault by saying, who stands that close with coffee anyway? But this is definitely the deflection champion right here. B, offer to replace it immediately, hoping it smooths things over fast. I like to call this one the materialistic magician. C, make a humorous apology by saying, look at it this way. Tie-dye is back in style. This one is apology mixed with mild ridicule. And D, offer a sincere apology, acknowledging their feelings. I'm really sorry I was careless, and I definitely will be more careful next time. I like to call this one the true emotional intelligence boss. So clearly, option C, your humor is appreciated, but maybe save it for another time once you've added the stain remover, and that works. My A's, okay, defensiveness is understandable, but accountability can save you from future drama. My B's, yeah, you're kind of thoughtful, though sincerity can mean even more than a new shirt. And my D's, yep, definitely y'all gonna keep shining. You're the emotional intelligence champion. Pause briefly to reflect. How did you mostly respond? Mostly A's, you're still figuring out how to comfortably share your true feelings. Totally normal, but there's room to practice emotional openness. Mostly B's, you're caring but might use humor or actions to avoid tough emotional conversations. Mostly C's, you tackle emotions head on, which can be good. Just be mindful of how you express them. And mostly D's, your emotional intelligence game is strong. Keep nurturing the skill because it's your relationship's secret weapon. Remember, there are no wrong answers, only opportunities to grow closer together. Now let's talk about two big blind spots: defensiveness and emotional withdrawal. I'm not defensive, you're defensive. Sound familiar? It's human nature to defend ourselves when we feel criticized, but defensiveness stops emotional intimacy cold. Next time you feel attacked, try a curious response. Instead of, I never do that, try, okay, interesting point. Can you tell me more about why you feel that way? I promise your partner will be shocked, maybe even suspicious at first, but ultimately grateful. Ever get overwhelmed and go silent? Emotional withdrawal can feel safer, but is a slow relationship killer. If overwhelmed, take a short, communicated break by saying, hey, I need a minute to process. Let's talk in 20 minutes. Simple, but game changing. Here's a simple relationship changing challenge. For 1 week, whenever your partner shares something difficult or emotional, respond gently with, I'd love to hear more about that. It invites openness, builds emotional trust, and feels incredibly supportive. Give it a try. You'll be amazed by the results. Trust me. Look, emotional intimacy isn't about perfection. It's about improving how we relate to each other and creating stronger connections every day. Even the best relationships experience sandwich meltdowns and accidental email disasters. But relationships powered by emotional intelligence bounce back quicker and stronger. If your emotional intelligence quiz results weren't perfect, congratulations, you're human. Welcome to the emotionally messy yet wonderful club of relationship improvement. No matter how your emotional intelligence quiz turned out, celebrate yourself for wanting to grow. You're already taking important steps toward a happy, healthier relationship. Remember, every relationship mess is a potential emotional intelligence success. Okay, I made that up. Someone please tweet it though. Emotional intelligence isn't something you have, it's something you practice every day. And if you scored perfect, well, maybe you might want to teach us your ways, or at least share your snacks. All right. Everyone, we've laughed, reflected, and learned a lot about emotional intelligence so far. Now let's dive deeper into exactly how emotional intelligence helps us dodge common relationship pitfalls. Because honestly, relationships don't come with instructions. And if they did, most of us probably wouldn't read them anyway. So let's figure this out together. You know those recurring arguments you have with your partner? The ones that pop up like weeds every couple of weeks? Believe it or not, emotional intelligence is your secret gardening tool for pulling those weeds out at the root rather than just trimming them back temporarily. Hear me on this, people. Let's explore exactly how emotional intelligence prevents relationship pitfalls and keeps your love garden thriving. Okay, enough gardening metaphors. Starting to sound like my mom. She loves gardening and plants and things like that. But let's jump in. One of the biggest relationship pitfalls is letting our emotions run the show. When we're triggered, our brain switches to fight or flight mode, causing us to react impulsively rather than thoughtfully. Imagine your partner casually says, hey, can we talk later? You immediately panic. What did I do wrong? And spend the next 2 hours rehearsing your defense speech. When the actual conversation happens, you're already on edge, escalating something that might have been minor. Research shows it takes about 6 seconds for our rational brain to override an emotional reaction. Before responding, count silently to 6 while breathing deeply. It sounds simple, but those 6 seconds shift your reaction from emotional chaos to calm, thoughtful conversations. Dr. Daniel Goleman, emotional intelligence pioneer, famously said, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom and power to choose our response." Those 6 seconds, that's your space to choose wisely. Another major pitfall in relationships is never fully resolving conflict, allowing resentment to quietly build over time. This is where repair attempts come into play. Coined by Dr. John Gottman, a repair attempt is any gesture that helps calm a heated moment, reconnect, and show your partner you care, even during disagreements. Think of repair attempts like emotional band-aids. They don't solve every wound instantly, but they certainly help with the healing. A humorous joke to diffuse tension can be helpful. Okay, clearly I forgot how to adult today. Can we rewind? A gentle physical touch, such as a hug or holding hands during tense moments, can diffuse these moments. Acknowledging your partner's perspective, such as saying, "I hear you, and I understand why you're upset." That sounds like validation, right? Along with acknowledgement. I'm going to give you an example on this one. Let's say Anna and Marcus often argued over finances. Before practicing emotional intelligence, Anna would get upset and Marcus would defensively shut down. After learning about repair attempts, Marcus started using humor gently, saying things like, "Well, if we keep fighting, at least we'll save money on date nights." That playful moment allowed Anna to relax, diffusing tension and making room for productive conversation. Next time conflicts arise, try using a gentle, caring phrase like, "I don't want to argue. Let's figure this out together. Hey, we're teammates here. Let's slow down and start again." Or even something as simple as a loving touch or hand squeeze can remind you both you're on the same team. Another common trap here, assuming we know exactly what our partners think or feel without actually checking. How many times have we thought something like, "They clearly don't care about me because they didn't text back fast enough"? We can spin entire stories based purely on assumptions, turning minor misunderstandings into full-blown emotional hurricanes. Instead of assuming, let's practice gentle checking in by saying, "Hey, I noticed you seemed quiet. Is everything okay? Or am I reading too much into it?" This allows your partner to clarify without feeling accused and helps prevent misunderstandings from spiraling out of control. Let's say we have David, who frequently assumed his girlfriend Lisa's silent meant she was angry. Lisa, on the other hand, was just stressed about work. After implementing regular emotional check-ins, David learned that Lisa's silence often had nothing to do with him. This small shift in communication drastically improved their relationship dynamic, saving them from countless unnecessary arguments. Ever find yourself saying, "You never help around the house," or "You always forget important things"? Statements like these trigger defensiveness and escalate conflicts quickly. Emotionally intelligent communication focuses on feelings and specifics rather than generalizations and blame. So let's replace always and never statements with "I feel" statement. So instead of saying "You never listen," try saying "I feel unheard when we don't talk things through." Another example of this, instead of saying "You always forget plans," try saying "It hurts my feelings when our plans get forgotten. Could we figure out a system together?" This shift immediately reduces defensiveness and opens genuine conversation. Here's a practical tool you and your partner can start today. Once a week, set aside just 5 minutes for a quick relationship check-in and have each person ask, "What's something I did this week that made you feel loved? Is there anything you need more or less of emotionally right now?" This brief exercise keeps emotional connection strong, prevents resentment from building up, and makes it easier to address small issues before they become big ones. Relationship therapists Esther Perel beautifully explains, love thrives in emotional safety. Emotional intelligence creates that safety by turning arguments into dialogues and misunderstandings into opportunities. In other words, emotional intelligence doesn't just repair damage, it actively prevents it. That one was powerful, y'all. I hope y'all heard that. So I want you to think of emotional intelligence like cooking with your partner. Without emotional intelligence, you're both throwing random ingredients into the pot without checking, hoping dinner turns out edible. I don't know if I want to eat that. With emotional intelligence, you're carefully tasting, adjusting spices, communicating clearly, and laughing together even when things get messy. Because really, a pinch of humor, a dash of patience, and regular check-ins make for a far tastier relationship, doesn't it? I'll let y'all think about that one for a second. Relationships, even great ones, aren't immune from challenges, but emotionally intelligent couples experience conflicts less intensely, recover faster, and ultimately grow stronger after each difficulty. So think of emotional intelligence as preventative care, like vitamins for your relationship. Taking them regularly keeps the emotional health of your relationship strong and resilient, preventing bigger relationship illnesses later on. Remember, a disagreement handled with emotional intelligence is never just a conflict, it's a chance to deepen intimacy. You've got this. One emotionally intelligent conversation at a time. I believe in y'all. Okay, we've explored what emotional intelligence is, discovered how our childhood influences our emotional intelligence, spotted red flags, and learned how emotional intelligence prevents relationship pitfalls. But now, let's talk about the fun part, actively building emotional intelligence in your relationship. Think of emotional intelligence like a muscle. It gets stronger with practice, and just like going to the gym, consistent effort and maybe a few playful grunts of effort leads to incredible results over time. Let's jump into practical, easy-to-use strategies to strengthen your emotional intelligence every day. Step 1. The power of pause and reflect. You've heard me mention this before, but it deserves repeating because it's transformative. The pause and reflect method is simply pressing pause before you react emotionally, allowing space for thoughtful response instead of impulsive reaction. When your partner says something that triggers you, instead of firing back immediately, do this quick internal check. Pause and take a slow, deep breath. Then reflect by asking yourself these 3 quick questions. What am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling this way? And how can I communicate this feeling effectively? Step 2, embrace the magic of tell me more. Curiosity is one of emotional intelligence's superpowers. Instead of getting defensive or instantly problem solving, ask your partner, can you tell me more about why you feel that way? This simple sentence signals to your partner that you genuinely care about their emotional experience, dramatically improving your communication. This week, whenever you find yourself about to respond defensively or with advice, pause and gently say, tell me more. Notice how your partner opens up and feels safer being vulnerable with you. Think of it this way. When you ask your partner, tell me more, it's the relationship equivalent of adding extra guac at Chipotle. It costs you almost nothing but makes the entire experience way better. Step 3, the you, me, us mindset shift. Relationship conflicts often become battles of me versus you, with each partner defending their own territory. A better emotional intelligence strategy is shifting your mindset to us versus the issue. Imagine conflict as a puzzle on the table. You and your partner are side by side working together to solve it, not opponents trying to outsmart each other. So next time conflict arises, actively say something like, this isn't me versus you, it's us versus the issue. How can we solve this together? Just reframing conflicts this way boosts empathy, teamwork, and emotional intimacy. Step 4, practicing empathy daily. Yes, even when you're tired. Empathy isn't something we use occasionally. It's a daily habit, like brushing your teeth, hopefully daily, right? Empathy keeps your relationship healthy and strong. Every night, ask your partner a simple question. What's one thing I could better understand about your day today? This simple, regular practice deepens emotional intimacy dramatically over time. Warning, regular empathy practice might cause side effects like increased happiness, deeper intimacy, and possibly adorable nightly rituals. Proceed at your own risk. Okay, yes, I know. Step 5. Weekly emotional intelligent date night ritual. One powerful way to build emotional intelligence is creating intentional space for emotional connection each week. Think of it as a regular date night focused specifically on emotional intelligence growth. Here are some sample emotional intelligence date night ideas. Emotionally intelligent question jar. Fill a jar with thoughtful, emotionally focused questions like, when did you feel most loved this week? Take turns drawing and answering. Feelings check-in walk. Take a relaxing walk and discuss each other's emotional highs and lows from the past week. And the third one, love letter exchange. Write short, sincere notes about things you deeply appreciate about each other's emotional qualities. Exchange letters at the end of date night. Here's an example. Mike and Alicia started an emotional intelligence date night every Friday. Over dinner, they'd ask emotional intelligent questions and share thoughtful answers. Within weeks, their relationship felt deeper and more connected. Now their Friday nights are sacred, not just because it's date night, but because it's their emotional intelligence growth night. Dr. Solomon, a renowned relationship psychologist, beautifully captures it. Emotional intelligence isn't about doing one big thing perfectly. It's about doing small, emotionally intelligent things consistently. Consistency matters more than intensity. Small, daily emotional intelligence habits create huge relationship transformations over time. Listen, relationships aren't always easy, but you and your partner deserve emotional intimacy, closeness, and happiness. Emotional intelligence isn't about perfection. It's about commitment to growing together, understanding each other deeply, and laughing at your mistakes along the way. Think of building emotional intelligence like baking your relationship's favorite dessert. Sure, it takes some effort and patience, but the results are delicious, sweet, and incredibly rewarding. Plus, there's always room for a little extra sugar, like humor, patience, and kindness. Whew, y'all, I don't know about y'all, but I know that was a lot of information today. But I know emotionally intelligence is like a big thing right now. And I'm glad we covered so much of this together today, especially from understanding emotional intelligence to learning how to build it actively into your relationship. If you're still here, first off, give yourself a huge pat on the back and maybe treat yourself to something delicious because you're genuinely committed to growing your relationship into something extraordinary. Remember, emotional intelligence isn't about getting everything right all the time. Far from it, trust me. It's about staying curious, being patient, and consistently investing in your emotional connection. Love is a journey, not a destination, and emotional intelligence is your trusty GPS, helping you navigate bumps in the road, confusing detours, and occasional flat tires. Okay, life happens. So this week, I encourage you to pick just one emotional intelligence practice we discussed and commit to using it consistently for 7 days with your partner. Whether that's practicing pause and reflect before reacting emotionally, gently inviting deeper conversations by asking, tell me more, having a weekly emotionally intelligence focused date night, or shifting conflicts from me versus you to us versus the issue. Pick one, put it into practice, and notice the difference it makes. I'd absolutely would love to hear your stories. So if you could send me a message or leave a comment sharing your experiences. You don't have to do this alone. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, Hearts Wine from Harsh Distractions, for exclusive episodes, fun behind the scenes content, and even more tools to keep your relationship thriving. Also visit our website, www.aliciasdistractions.com, for valuable relationship resources, upcoming workshops, and a supportive community dedicated to creating emotionally intelligent relationships. And of course, follow us on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, where we share daily relationship insights, emotionally intelligent challenges possibly, and a healthy dose of humor and encouragement. I want to hear more from you. What's your biggest relationship challenge right now? What topic would you love for me to cover next? Drop your questions and stories in the comments on YouTube or message me directly on social media. Your question might just inspire our next episode. Great relationships aren't found, they're built, one emotionally intelligent moment at a time. Thanks again for joining me today. You're doing incredible work just by showing up and investing in your love. Until next time, keep loving deeply, connecting intentionally, and never forget, you've totally got this. See you soon, couples. Cheers.